Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, Eagles general manager Howie Roseman and head coach Nick Sirianni spoke with the media at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. They had a lot to say. Gino and I will dissect it coming up next, right here on Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome into a Wednesday edition of the podcast. I'm Louis DiBiase. He's Gino Camilleri. A Wednesday edition of the show means it's episode number 3 of 5. Downloaded into your phone Monday through Friday, wherever you get Locked On Eagles. We're also available in video form on YouTube as well. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got some video exclusive content for you over there. And we're on Twitter at Locked On Birds, at DiBiase LOE, at GC24_football. Gino, as we talked about in the open, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, they had a lot to say today in their press conferences down in Indianapolis at the NFL Scouting Combine. Workouts officially begin tomorrow with the quarterbacks and skill position players. But I really enjoyed the Tuesday and Wednesday portion of the Combine as well, because that's where a lot of the information comes, not just about prospects in the draft when you're interviewing general managers, head coaches, prospects alike, but a lot of other stuff begins to circulate. You're getting more information now. The first look at free agency, internal decisions as well. And the biggest one, and it's Wednesday, so it's Locked On QB1 for the Eagles, is to give Jalen Hurts another opportunity in 2022 to try and trade for a star veteran quarterback, to consider a prospect in this quarterback class in the 2022 NFL draft. And yet again today, both Roseman and Sirianni reiterated that Jalen Hurts, as of right now, they've said that nothing has changed, that he is still their starting quarterback. And, I think we mentioned this a month or two ago when the first offseason press conference came out, and they both kind of said the same thing. We both said we believe them, but also take it with a grain of salt. Talk is talk. Walk is the walk. And it is very different. But I do believe them to a degree. I think they want Jalen Hurts to pan out. It would make it a lot easier for this organization to build around him, not have to use assets to go get somebody else. But again, that doesn't mean they're not going to switch things up this offseason. So it was definitely, though, a good bill of confidence for Jalen today.
I take a few things away from what Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman said today. You look at Howie Roseman in particular, saying right away, one of the first things he said is learning from his mistakes in the past. And I think how him and Nick Sirianni presented themselves today in a combined effort where a lot of the things that they both said really echoed one main point, that they weren't torn apart on the discussion of Jalen Hurts, the idea of Jason Kelce sticking around. They really had this cohesive type of talking point.
Even when it talks about players like fitting a scheme, but having the scheme for the players, it did seem like one unified voice for sure.
And especially at the quarterback position, coming off of what they had to go through last offseason, and now what Chris Ballard was talking about in Indianapolis and Frank Reich, that whole situation, the Eagles are going in and saying, Jalen Hurts, we said you were our guy. Right now you are our guy. Going forward, we plan to build around you. And one, that instills confidence in the organization. It instills confidence in the players. It instills confidence in your quarterback. Will they still look at every avenue at quarterback? Of course. But to come in today and last offseason when they really didn't say that Jalen was the guy until right before the season, to come out of this window and know that everybody's behind him. I mean, the city of Philadelphia, the fans are behind him. Seems like Sirianni and Howie Roseman.
Well, they're not blowing smoke.
They're not at all.
I think we're in the middle ground here of, we don't think they're just making this up. They do have a certain belief in Jalen, but at the same time, I thought they were committal today, but they also controlled themselves with cautious hype and optimism. You know what I mean? Like, they weren't going all in saying Jalen Hurts is the quarterback of the future. They really they kept everything on the table again. Like, they want Jalen to be the one that pans out, but if a better opportunity arises, they're going to pounce on it. I just think it makes sense to say the things they did when Hurts is your starter right now. It doesn't help to give a cloudy answer. It wouldn't help with trade value. It doesn't help if you were to try to get somebody else and it didn't pan out. Like, being murky and just not really being super committed like they said they weren't last year, it really wouldn't help your situation this year anyway.
I'd say that I was thoroughly impressed with what both of them had to say today. If I had to give it a grade, I'd say they both had an A. I think how they came in and understanding where this franchise lies and starting with the quarterback. And the one thing outside of just saying he was the guy that I really appreciated was when Howie and Nick both said that they've talked to Jalen, they've talked to him in regards to areas where he has to get better. And now it's in Jalen's hands, and he knows that he has to go and get better. That's accountability. That's what we've really been crying for and yelling for on this podcast for quite some time. Hold even the best and most important position accountable, the quarterback position, because if you're not accountable there, the rest of the 52, the practice squad, all the way down to the guy who's taping up their ankles before the game, they're not going to be held accountable. So, going into next year, if you don't see those strides, they're going to look to go into a different outlet. But if he does continue to get better, improve in the areas that they want him to, Lou, I think they've set themselves up in a win-win, right? Because not only are they saying, if you get better, we'll be behind you, but also at the same time, putting a precedent for anybody that is going to play that position. And I think they did it with Carson Wentz. That was the start of it. But now they have put it in stone. And I think if they came out and said this in maybe the end of 2019 and said Carson has to get better in these areas, or we could look to move on and really held him accountable, maybe that changes the fortune a bit. But now Jalen, somebody who's not scared of accountability, went to Alabama, went to Oklahoma, responsibility at 2 Power 5 programs, now in a city that really they're in your head all the time. I think what they came out and said today should put Jalen Hurts at ease to where he could just go out and improve and show to us and prove everybody wrong that he can be the guy here.
Yeah. I just like the approach they took because I feel like, again, they were pretty committed to Jalen and what they said, but they were also, showing self-awareness and saying, look, Jalen does have to improve in certain areas. And they just, again, they kept everything on the table, which makes a lot of sense considering the question marks right now, considering his development, considering the alternative potential options this year or next year, because, next year you don't even know. If you win 7 to 10 games again and you're sitting in the middle of the first round, that's still an interesting debate you're going to have next year as well. So again, Gino, I do think that, if Russell Wilson was available, they would love to trade for Russell Wilson. But I do think they would also love the outcome of Jalen just developing because, again, they do definitely see the opportunity and the advantage that could come with him taking the next step. You could use so many resources this year, next year on building that roster. And although they tried with Carson Wentz, they failed in that execution to build around him, and they see it differently. Like they see, man, if Jalen is the guy, we have an opportunity to make it a lot easier on us and him, to surround him with a much better support system than Carson did. So, that has a lot to do with it. But I think as well, what has to do with it is just the likely outcome of no better upgrades this offseason or a guy that has a better chance to be the guy. I think they probably view this as our best bet right now is to give Jalen 2022 and then see if we need to pursue somebody else in 2023. I wouldn't be surprised if another outcome does transpire, if they drafted somebody, if they traded for somebody, but that would be my guess right now is where their head is at.
I think that's the most likely outcome as well after what we've heard today. And we always say that going through draft season, it's like a puzzle. You're putting together information, not just on the prospects, like you had prefaced earlier in this segment, but on the organization itself. And today and yesterday are 2 prime examples of that. And those discussions going around in Indianapolis are happening as we speak. Teams know where they stand on certain players. They know where they stand in terms of the top guys getting traded. Brian Gutekunst came out for the Green Bay Packers yesterday saying that they haven't received trade calls on Aaron Rodgers.
Pete Carroll today on Russell Wilson that they don't want to trade him. So that's part of this too, Gino, is how we might say we don't have really another alternative. That's part of this thing as well.
But the stars are aligning, Lou, to where this season, 2022, really is, in my opinion, a no-lose. Because one, you either exceed expectations and you have a guy moving forward, or two, you have stuck with him, drafted 3 guys in the first round, 4 in the top 60 picks of this draft for whoever to come in and play that role, to take it and move forward. And it would be a very promising position to be in, Lou, if they drafted one of those wide receivers that they were talking about and talking to in Indianapolis with Treylon Burks, Jamison Williams, Garrett Wilson, the whole
Drake
nine.
London as well. They
Drake
met that
London
with,
as well.
USC. Mm-hmm.
They're looking to upgrade their offense as well as the defense, as well as any part of this team, because it's not going to get to a Super Bowl caliber team in one offseason like we know, but they have to hit and get better football players. Starting at the quarterback position, you now have solidified that for at least 2022. Now figure out the rest of the X's and O's that you have to fill in and find those blanks, and you're going to do it through the draft, and it starts there in Indianapolis, in those meeting rooms where Nick Sirianni decided you want to get a Tiny Tykes basketball hoop and start shooting against guys to
Last
figure
year
out
was
how
rock, paper,
competitive they are.
scissors. This year it was free throws.
Very self-aware.
Sam Howell only went 2 for 5,
joke.
and that's why, again, he's just dropping on my list. He was pretty low anyway. But, Gino,
Sam
we'll
Howell's
continue to
mid.
get into Howie Roseman actually did an interview with Dave Spadaro on Tuesday I want to get into. I thought he's had some interesting things to say about just the philosophy of roster building and what he's learned over the years. We'll also get into a lot of what Nick Sirianni and Howie said about other positions outside of quarterback. So that's coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles.
And before we do that, we have a message from our friends at the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, betonline.net. If you're not on BetOnline at this point, after listening to this show 5 times a week, and you could bet 24/7, 365 days a year on any sport that you want. The NFL draft's coming up. The combine is just a few days away. Go in there, bet some of those player props, bet some of the over-unders that we discussed on yesterday's show. Go check out everything that they have to offer, from boxing, UFC, soccer, basketball's getting close to the playoffs, NHL is getting close to the playoffs, MLB. Maybe you could bet on a future of when they actually play that season, because Rob Manfred is really blowing it there. But if you want to blow some money and win some money at the same time by putting a good bet down, go to betonline.net. Make sure you get there on your mobile device, laptop, anywhere where you can get internet, because BetOnline is where the game starts.
All right, Eagles fans, welcome back into this Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles. We thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Make sure you're following Locked On NFL as well. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NFL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Louis DiBiase, Gino Camilleri. We are getting into Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni's NFL scouting combine press conferences today. But Gino, today wasn't the first time Howie spoke this week. He met with and sat down with Dave Spadaro of PhiladelphiaEagles.com, as they tend to do around this time of the year, every single season, off season, I should say. And I just was really interested about one thing in particular that I was actually thinking about the week before. And I'm really glad that Howie touched on this. A lot of it stemmed from my going back and forth with what they should do at quarterback this year and next year. He was talking about, and I don't even really think he was asked about it, but how he was talking about the balancing act. You have to find, when it comes to roster building, patience, finding sustainable growth, right? Sustainably building through collecting draft picks, building your core through the draft and homegrown talent and, long-term contracts, not just finding stopgaps and, quick sign free agents, and then finding the balance of that, but also taking risks. What I love that he said is, you don't want to just do things down the middle and win 10 games. When it comes time to be under that confetti, if you get that opportunity, it takes more than just doing everything in a vanilla, by the book way. You have to be creative. And he knows that more than anybody. In 2017, they really went after a bunch of untapped markets. And so it was good for me to hear that, because I know after 2020, Lurie and Roseman kind of shifted to a long-term focus, and rightfully so. They wanted to build more sustainably than go for it all in that one window, like they were, again, justifiably so, trying to do. Because I just wondered, after how we kind of failed at gunning for it in 2018, 2019, and 2020, was he going to be more gun shy? Was he going to take a different approach and not be as aggressive? Because I always loved the philosophy. I always just thought the execution was the issue. So it was good to hear how we talk about that balancing act. And that's something that they definitely needed and just change because they were all in before. But I'm glad he still, is going to be aggressive.
I would say the new Howie Roseman and what Nick Sirianni has brought to that building is this idea of self-awareness. Never before have we heard Howie Roseman owning up to his mistakes as often as he has done since he got rid of Carson Wentz. I think once that hit home, that he said, okay, this really could be my last time here, the last go around, my last quarterback, my last coach. He understands that, maybe he did get a little too risky, right? He kept letting it ride at the roulette table. You didn't know when to get up. You were going black hit 10 times in a row. And then on the 11th time, it didn't hit and he lost it all, right? He was in that situation where he put all of that time and effort into those guys, those Band-Aid signings, hoping he could run it back. And in reality, he didn't do the safer approach and build sustainably. Because as much as sustainability seems like it should be a risk, a lot of it just comes back to your basic principles. Investing in offensive line, investing in defensive line, investing in Heisman Trophy winners and Power 5 guys that played at a high level.
They were just trying to get too smart, Gino. And that's the thing. I feel like they could have found sustainability in those times, even when they were gunning for it, because they weren't even doing what the Rams were doing and giving up first and second round picks. They were trading a third for Golden Tate or a fourth for Jay Ajayi, signing Deshaun Jackson or Mike Wallace. It was just the execution of the draft picks were horrible. So when it came time and you kept making the wrong calls with your older core, Alshon Jeffrey, right, Deshaun Jackson, you didn't have the guys to step up when those players dramatically declined.
And I would say one thing that a lot of teams don't have the luxury of for having a general manager as tenured as Howie Roseman is how much he's seen the landscape of this league change. I mean, think back to when he was first in that office and what was going down in Philadelphia. It was the decline of the Donovan McNabb era. They were going into this more fast-paced, the start of the Chip Kelly era where they really were incorporating college ideas. And now you've seen this mesh of pro and college ideas to where even him today addressing the linebacker position, saying that, they are important for Jonathan Gannon's scheme. That self-awareness to go from a regime that never invested high draft picks at linebacker to make that declaration, to even admit that point, just goes to show that he is willing and open to change now in this era. And I think 2021, that draft really showed me he talked the talk, right, Lou? You said you wanted to hear him talk the talk and walk the walk. Well, he did that. He got a good draft class. He put together a good draft class in 2018 when everybody said, oh, you got 5 picks. You traded some away to try and prolong your window. Well, at the same time, he landed his starting left tackle. He landed an edge rusher of the future. He's gotten guys over that time that have fit this new landscape while evolving his old style of thinking, because there are football guys and guys in front offices that will stick to their ways, won't change whatever people say. And after that whole Carson Wentz ordeal, I really think that light bulb turned on.
I think it was a reality check. Yeah,
it was a real slap in the face.
Yeah, it wasn't just the Jalen Hurts pick. I think it was the Jalen Reagor pick too. I think sometimes 2021 just felt like a more simple approach to the draft. It just felt more controlled. And again, I think maybe it was easier when the expectations were off and you didn't feel like you needed to be creative and go for a championship. But again, there is a balancing act there. I don't want him to totally kick that. And that's why I'm glad he talked about, to get under that confetti, you have to be willing to take risks because, I did wonder, you
traded with the Dallas Cowboys to get Devontae.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
that's the thing is like, you mentioned how this could be his last go round. That also made me think, like, is he going to be more cautious, and not just about everything, but like specifically quarterback? Is it like, does everything have to be perfect? Is he going to be picky with the prospects? Is he going to be willing to not take a chance on a guy with upside while he has a safe guy in Jalen Hurts, who, let's face it, he's not tied. His career is not tied to Jalen Hurts. If Jalen doesn't pan out, Howie didn't take him to be the franchise quarterback anyway. So those things had me questioning, if he would, when the time is right. Because let's face it, NFL rebuilds don't take 4 years. Would he keep trying to kick the can down the road in a different way? but it was good to hear him talk the talk. And as you said, now he's got to walk the walk. And, because it was more coming from the quarterback perspective where I was thinking about it. And then to hear him talk about it with the roster as a whole was interesting on Tuesday.
And I think that's how you have to approach it too, because we got too hung up for a while, and I'll be one of those people that got so honed in on this quarterback position and getting it right. Because since Donovan left, and I mean, after that Arizona NFC Championship game, it was a barren wasteland for quarterback, right? We had the good season of Michael Vick, and then we had Carson Wentz's good 2017.
You just had a bunch of lightning in a bottle, right? You had Foles 2013, Wentz 2017, and yeah.
And seeing those years, right, Lou, that I was talking about, like the 2008 run was lightning in a bottle. They didn't get to that point before the Super Bowl, which they went to 4 years ago. It took them quite some time to get back there, almost to the end of the decade. Then you had this lightning in a bottle run with Michael Vick and Chip Kelly, and he saw that, right? Then that wasn't sustainable either. Then he saw 2017. If you don't see all of those failures in building for that lightning in the bottle, well, man, that thunder is going to come up on you real quick, and it's going to clap you out of Philadelphia, because this is the not-for-long league. It's called the NFL. Howie has had a tenure that many people would be very, very grateful to have, and I think he realizes that now, Lou. And you're seeing the NFL take guys away from him. You're seeing the Andrew Berrys, the Joe Douglases. So the common denominator is him, right? Like, we know that. So if things play out once again where they get lightning in a bottle and things crash out, we know who public enemy number one is. So to not want to build sustainably would be crazy for him. But at the same time, we know Mr. Lurie wants that confetti. So it is that balancing act. And I think it's a very interesting philosophical debate to have, especially for a guy like Howie, who is now tied to Nick Sirianni to an extent. But I think if it came down to it and Nick was able to not lose the locker room, they might move on from Howie over Nick if things do go awry. And
it would be a bad look if they kept Howie over a fourth coach now at this time.
Absolutely.
So, but again, I really liked when he said, like, not just doing things down the middle and winning 10 games, because that is let's face it, what we're nervous about with Jalen and, taking this approach is I don't want to just be the Alex Smith Kansas City Chiefs or I'm thinking of the teams in the Final Four, the Andy Dalton Bengals before Joe Burrow, right? The Jimmy Garoppolo 49ers. So, look, again, if you want to keep Jalen Hurts because you believe in him or you don't think the guy is there this year, then I'm all in. I just want to make sure that they are not doing this because they don't want to do worse, right? And how he's scared that this is his last shot. And, he doesn't want to force a pick. You never want to force it, but you also might have to take a risk to get your next quarterback if Jalen isn't the guy. But, the proof is in the pudding. Like, even with quarterback, they have been interested in Deshaun Watson the last year. I'm sure they've been interested in Russell Wilson. There was the report last year they were interested in trading up for Zach Wilson. So I do feel like I am confident that if they recognize a guy is the guy, they're not going to shy away from it. They might just right now actually believe in Hurts. And, that's okay. And then 2023 is your make or break. Like, let's decide now what we're doing for the long term. So, really interesting stuff. I mean, that's the one thing with Howie. I still think he has some significant issues that haven't gone away. He's very self-aware and has fixed certain things. I still think there's certain liabilities to him for sure, but he's always an interesting listen for sure. Like, listening to him talk about football philosophically is fascinating.
Yeah, and that's the one thing you can't take away from Howie. Like, say what you want about his roster construction. He's a smart guy. Like, he has been in this league long enough, and
sometimes he thinks he's too smart, though, for his own good.
And that's what I wanted to get to, right, Lou? And that's the point. The press conference we saw when he said that Carson Wentz was an appendage on their hand, right? He had this smugness to him almost. I feel like that smugness has kind of gone away.
That's how his draft picks felt too. Like the Rager and Hurts pick felt smug as hell.
And I think that reality now is set in for him. And I don't think I've ever trusted a version of Howie Roseman more than I have since 2021, because now
I just wonder when they get good again, though. I hope that ego doesn't build back up.
We'll see. I mean, that's a bridge we'll cross when we get to it. But right now, my main focus is what is his philosophy team building wise, and everything he said, every checkpoint that he has gone through this offseason, I think he has crossed it off and done a good job, because you're
Things
not
are
going to
looking
look
good
at
right now.
2021 and say that was a bad class. They got multiple starters out of that class. They have 3 first-round picks, 4 picks in the top 60. They now have their guy for 2022 at quarterback. So let's fill in the blanks, right? Like, let's get to the situation where you and I can say, oh, we had a 10-win season. Now let's figure out where we can go from here. Because they didn't have one last year and they barely got into the playoffs. We don't want to be in that situation once again. So prove us wrong.
Yeah, prove us wrong. And again, Howie's been humbled before too. So let's see if he can sustain, this way of thinking. We'll continue to follow it. Gino, he did, and Nick Sirianni touched on some interesting things outside of quarterback and, just philosophical discussions about the roster, some more specific stuff as well that we'll get into coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. It's a Wednesday edition of the show. And guys, today's podcast is sponsored by the best tasting protein bar on the planet. It's Built Bar. It's the time of year that a lot of people, like myself, a lot of the time have pretty much given up on their New Year's resolutions, but not in 2022. We're going to stick to our resolutions and eat right this year, thanks to Built Bar. And it doesn't really feel like it's a resolution because you actually enjoy eating them. It's all of the flavor and none of the guilt. Most Built Bars contain only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein in every bar. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bar with these delicious Built Bars covered in 100% real chocolate. They have so many awesome flavors. Gino loves the mint brownie, coconut. You got coconut almond. I'm loving the white chocolate cookies and cream. They also have puffs now as well, which are protein infused marshmallow bars. They have right now cinnamony churro, coconut marshmallow, and banana cream pie. Go check these out at built.com and make sure you use the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off of your order. Once again, go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, for 15% off your order of Built Bars. All right, Eagles fans, Louis DiBiase, Gino Camilleri, it's Locked On Eagles. We're wrapping up this Wednesday edition of the show, getting into the comments from Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni at the Scouting Combine. Their press conferences were today. I really do recommend as well, normally PhiladelphiaEagles.com content, very team friendly. There's not a lot of hard hitting kind of material and questions, but Howie had some really good things to say with Dave Spadaro. So I do recommend checking that out. And, Gino and I dove deep into a few comments he made from that in segment 2. But Gino, outside of like quarterback and just roster building in general, they did talk a lot about some different stuff today. And one thing I was really interested in, and you mentioned it in segment 1, was maybe hinting at changing their philosophy on linebacker. I don't know. It wasn't a super aggressive comment from Roseman, but he did mention how the role of a Philadelphia Eagles linebacker now is different with Jonathan Gannon. And, when you see that and you see their role in 2021, it could change the importance when it's not just the role player that they were. They're not as important as a corner or defensive end, regardless of scheme, but they're also more important than they were with Jim Schwartz. And when you have the flexibility of 3 picks, and if you're not going to take a quarterback, we've done that on Mock Draft Monday a few times, they might be more open-minded with linebacker this year.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen since we were a Linebackers Don't Matter podcast to now saying we want them to draft one in the first round. But all tongue in cheek,
we always did say we needed at least one every down.
Hey, guy. We were ahead of our time on that Patrick Queen pick, my friend. We wanted.
I was going to say,
yeah,
we didn't hate. We just didn't want to invest multiple, big resources in linebacker.
Right, but the philosophical change comes from what your defensive coordinator wants to do, which to me means that what I said in the beginning, the cohesion, what they want between coaching staff, between scouting staff, and between what they are going to end up with at the end of free agency and the draft. And you can't look at the NFL and see the guys that have made plays in the playoffs, the Devin Whites of the world for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you look around to Patrick Queen for Baltimore and what he has done. And these guys that can play the linebacker role, like a Tyrann Mathieu at safety, right? Like, I believe the optionality element that Howie talked about is there. They're not going to throw the option of taking a first round talent in Devin Lloyd and throw that out the window because they don't want to take a linebacker and take a second round player at another position. I think they would be willing to do that now and put in a good football player. Like he said, we have to do. We have to get better. We have multiple chances to get better with those multiple first-round picks. And he said that at linebacker, and he also said, which isn't a shock to you and I, that you could probably plan on them adding a pass rusher or two in this offseason.
You know what I love that he said was they asked him about the class in 2021. He's like, I'm going to ease up on, my hype for a prospect group. And he was definitely referring to 2019 when he called that edge rush group a historic class. And then he didn't take one until Sharif Miller in the fourth round. And he got some blowback for that.
Same with running back.
I was kind of, that's right. I was kind of in 2017. Yeah.
Yep.
I was kind of hoping he was going to dive more into that, like how to handle the depth of a prospect pool. Like if there are a lot of defensive ends, because he did mention that year too, though, hey, if there's a lot of defensive ends, it could push down some other really good players at other positions to us. And so he did, stress though the need for an edge rusher this year. And he said like you said, he would imagine they'll do stuff there. I would imagine even if they don't double dip with two edge rushers in this draft, they'll come away with one high pick day 1, day 2, and a free agent, because Gino, they do need help there with only Josh Sweat and a 33-year-old Brandon Graham coming off a torn Achilles at that spot.
Hassan Reddick.
He liked a tweet, I guess, today about the Eagles signing him. So who knows?
I
the
think
Temple
that
kid.
We are in for a very fun 2 months here in Philadelphia, because regardless, this is the fantasy land that most people want to live out when they play their Madden GM mode, where you want multiple first-round picks. They talked about today, I forgot who it was. I think it might have been Domowich that mentioned, like, this offseason, you have a little bit more money. Can you go in and be willing to shell out some contracts? And he said that we'll use that almost as an insurance of sorts, which you and I talked about yesterday. So having a Howie Roseman who has a stable head and a level head is something that we haven't really seen in most of his tenure. But now to hear what he said today, what Nick Sirianni said today, coming off of what Nick Sirianni in his first press conference looked like, to see him today, just cool, confident, coming out there with that Sixers jacket. Like, I'm getting that feeling again, Lou, where I'm excited for the future, because last offseason was really gray and cloudy. Now we're just hopping down the road, man. Like, we're on the yellow brick road to hopefully building a championship caliber football team here.
What do you think the beer of choice was in Jason Kelsey's keg they sent over?
That's a good one.
I feel like Kelsey likes a good cheap Pilsner. Like he's probably just chugging Busch Light in there.
Oh, if it wasn't Dallas Sucks beer, I don't know, man.
Where'd he go to school? Cincinnati? Yeah.
I don't know what they have in Cincinnati. If he was
Ohio beer,
guy,
probably Bud Light.
A spotted cow or two. Yeah, maybe if he was, well, we know Sirianni, Western New Yorker, he probably likes his Labatt like you and I do.
Yeah, maybe it was some Canadian ales. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Kelsey's as close to a Canadian as possible. Like I would say
he'd
that.
Fit right in.
Right up there. Yep.
They did mention today that they're hopeful Kelsey will come back. They did send the keg over to his house. So I would imagine Kelsey is back in 2022. Definitely something to keep a close eye on, though. And we got you covered right here on Locked On Eagles 5 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow and Friday as well for a show. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Eagles wherever you get the podcast. Tomorrow starts the workouts at the 2022 NFL Scouting Combine. Don't only subscribe to our podcast on audio feeds, though, because we're going to have some Combine video exclusives on our YouTube channel, and we'll be following all the coverage on Twitter at Locked On Birds, at GC24_football, and at DiBiase LOE. Thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Now go make your second listen, the Locked On NFL Draft podcast with Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker. They bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. All right, that's going to do it for today's edition of LOE. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for listening and watching, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.